we are thanking God also for where He's taking us to. I know that God is faithful to us because He has always been faithful throughout every single moment. And today, dear listeners, as we continue to build our relationships and our families, my reflection today is about something I actually encountered again this week in my office. There's some particular types of marriages, dear listener, that require a little bit more of, let me say, your homework. Their marriages, for them to work, you must have done your homework, and you must have done your homework well. And I'm talking about eight marriage types that require you to do your homework. 8 marriage types that require you to do your homework. Because yes, every marriage is unique. Every relationship is unique because individuals are unique, yes. But there are some specific circumstances or things that happen in our relationships, dear listener, or marriages we are in, that if at all I did not do the back work well, if I didn't do my homework well, if I didn't take time to understand, to learn, to get some form of expertise, to get some form of capacity, then automatically, dear listener, I am going to struggle in this particular relationship. And many a times we normally have a blanket statement that covers or governs most of our relationships, but the reality of the matter is this, is that you must understand your dynamics well enough to know how much work you need. Because some relationships require more work than others. Some relationships require more intentional, deliberate work to make them work. And many a times, because of the ignorance that love conquers all, because we're in love, we'll be able to do it. It makes us a bit more ignorant in pursuing or looking for this, in making it work, and therefore we are caught flat-footed. The first type of marriage, dear listener, that you have to do your homework and do it well is an interreligious marriage. An interreligious marriage. This is a marriage that has 2 people of 2 different faiths. Number 1, or 2 people with 2 different denominations. Now, denominations is a bit easier because denominations you might have to have a discussion that is in line with which church will we go to, which church will you go to? I'm an SDA and my wife is a Catholic. So which church do we go to? That's a different discussion. But still, dear listener, it is potentially a difficult marriage because religion forms the core of our principles and our beliefs. And I must understand the theology and the doctrine of where my partner has been going or where they plan us to go, because it will affect the value system of our relationship. Also, if it's an interfaith marriage whereby you are a Muslim and your partner is a Christian, or you are a Buddhist and your partner is a Christian, then automatically, dear listener, you must have done your assignment and your homework to understand what is the core principles of this religion. What do they teach about family, about marriage? What do they teach about men, about women? Am I in line with this? And how much does this affect my partner in how they relate to me? Don't assume that because we are in love, the love we have will bridge the gap between our faith. No. Faith, dear listener, forms the core pillar of our value system. And dear listener, you must have done your homework well. Number 2, this is very important, especially if you're living in Africa, an intercultural or an interracial marriage. An intercultural or an interracial marriage. Dear listener, it is good as human beings. And I accept that it's important for us to have diversity and acceptance of our race, our tribes, our cultures. That is important. But remember this, that the many differences that at times come out in our marriages is because, dear listener, of our cultural backgrounds, our cultural upbringing. Because there's a way that I must understand, because my wife comes from a different culture than me. She comes from a different tribe than I come from. Or my wife comes from a different race than I come from. I must understand that in that particular culture, what is their view about family? What is their view about men? Is this particular tribe or culture matriarchal? Is it patriarchal? Is it always, does it build towards, are they very strong on their cultural ways? Are they living strongly in their cultural beliefs? Have they moved on? Are they urban? Are they modern? What is happening there? Because, dear listener, remember this, that our culture affects our outlook, our perception, and understanding of life. And in the context of marriage, I must be clear of that. So it's important I do my homework and understand I'm marrying someone from a different culture from me. What is the role that culture plays in his or her life? Or I'm marrying a man who is European and I'm an African. Where this man comes from, his family, how do they view Africans? Useme tu niliangukia kamzungu. What happened when you go there? You know, how do they view you? You know, you're an African marrying an Asian. How do they view Africans? You know, and how do Africans view Asians? How does your family view Europeans? How do you view them where you have been raised? You know, you're marrying someone from a different tribe. How does your family view this tribe? What do you know about how that culture is in this book? Also, you might marry someone who's not even connected to their culture at all. It is a non-issue. But do your homework. Do your homework. You might marry someone who's saying, I don't even know anything about our culture. I have no idea what happens. I have never been raised there. I don't know a thing. Understand, we need to play a part. People say this has happened, but you have to be clear. Number 3, very important, a marriage without income from one or both of the partners. A marriage without income. Money doesn't build any marriage. Let's be clear, dear listener. But money or the lack of it can definitely destroy a marriage. Money never builds any marriage. But money or the lack of it can destroy a marriage. And that's a fact. So when one partner loses a job, or you're marrying someone who is jobless, or you're married and there's no source of income coming from both of you or one of you, my dear friend, you must find a way to address this and do your homework well. How does a marriage survive when there is no source of income? How do we not kill each other and still thrive and navigate this situation without destroying each other, without losing our marriage? Because, dear listener, a marriage without any source of income, dear listener, is a dicey marriage. So what do you do when your wife has lost a job? What do you do as a woman when your husband has no job? You're marrying a man who is jobless. You're marrying a man who has hope. Let me say that. What happens when you marry a man who has hope? He has no job, he has hope. How do you navigate that? How do you marry a woman who has no income? Because at times also I've had situations where people say, no, I'd prefer if my wife had an income, I'm carrying this burden by myself. How do you navigate it? Or you opened up a business, ikaanguka. How do you navigate, dear listener? That is very, very important. You must do your homework to understand how an incomeless marriage can survive. You can understand that, dear listener. Number 4, before I go on this break, is a blended marriage. A blended marriage. What's a blended marriage? A blended marriage is a marriage where one or both parties have come with a child from a previous relationship. As a general statement, marriage precedes children. But in a blended family, children have preceded the marriage. The children are older in their relationship with their parents than the parents are with each other. There's a child who's 5 years older than the marriage. Such a marriage, you must have done your homework well, because you must understand the relationship this person has with their child versus the relationship they plan to have with you. The relationship you'll have with this child and how the child views you. The relationship you will have your children when they come together, or if a new child comes in. You must do your homework, because the difference of a marriage is this. Other marriages, you have your time to have a honeymoon, then a child comes. A blended family, you begin the marriage as a parent and a spouse day one. First minute day one, you're a parent, dear listener, and you're a spouse. You must have done your homework well, because I've seen couples being overwhelmed because you didn't prepare to understand that my partner is coming with 2 children from another marriage. And if at all I'm marrying this woman or I'm marrying this man, I begin to be a mother day one, or I begin to be a father day one. I must have done my homework, dear listener. I go on a very quick break. After this break, dear listener, I'll be sharing with you the remaining 4 types of marriages. Victor Salamba, taking you this morning, listener, through 8 types of marriage that require you to do extra homework. Also, this reflection will be available on my Facebook page, Victor Salamba. You'll be able to find it there with dear listener, and also my website, which is awakeningminds.co.ke. You'll find this reflection during the course of this wonderful day. We continue, dear listener, with the next point, and that is point number 5: a marriage with a big age difference. A marriage with a big age difference. I did a reflection a while back about age being more than a number. And I say this, in marriage, age is more than just a number. Age is more than just a number, dear listener, in marriage. Therefore, any marriage that has an age difference of over 10 years is classified as a big difference in marriage, because you'll always be in 2 different seasons of your lives. It is important to do your homework on the season your partner is in, versus the season you are in and how you navigate. Don't assume and say age is just that a number. No, dear listener. In marriage, it is not. And whoever told you it is, lied to you. It is not. You have to look at the fact that if it's above 10 years, anything above 10 years, that marriage requires a lot of homework to work. Is it impossible to work? No, but it requires more homework. Because, dear listener, you'll always be in two different areas in your life. I did a whole reflection about this, dear listener, a while back. You can find it on my page where I really go through that. Number 6, now we go to the serious stuff. A childless marriage. A childless marriage. This is different from a couple. I'm talking about the marriage where the partner, the couple are unable to get a child, not because they have chosen to, but because of medical or biological reasons that are beyond them. That's the kind of marriage I'm talking about. You need to do your homework as a couple. I tell these couples who are preparing for marriage, I tell them that you have to prepare yourself. What if you don't get children? What if you don't get children? Are you ready for that outcome? Will your marriage survive that? Because many couples walk into marriage and never assume the possibility that there's a chance we might not get a child. So what do we do in case we don't get a child? Are we okay, the two of us? Can we survive this? Will we adopt? What will we do? But the problem is walking in assuming that it is going to be a sure thing to get a child. If you do your homework well, you realize that there's a possibility we might not get a child. So how do we survive a childless marriage, dear listener? Secondly, how do you deal with the frustrations that come with it, internally and externally, the pressure, the stigma? How do you live with that? How do you have the grace to accept that this is where we are and this is how we are, and we'll celebrate our love for each other, we shall live well? My dear friends, you must do your homework to know how do we survive a childless marriage. If there's a child in your marriage, you have to find a way to do your homework. Marriages which break because there's no child are people who didn't do their homework well. Number 7, a marriage where one is living with a permanent disability. Where one is living with a permanent disability. Again, I believe this. Disability is not any form of inability. But the dynamics of a marriage where one partner has a permanent disability, either that came after the marriage. I was walking with a couple a few months ago where the lady got into an accident and got paralyzed downwards and paralyzed for life. And we were navigating how can they be able to survive and make the marriage work. And at that point, they were going through some form of emotional fatigue. The man was getting tired. He was getting tired. The lady was feeling she's a burden. So also in her feeling she was a burden, she was getting more frustrated with him as well. And they were fighting over many things that were there that came about because of the fact that their lives had changed because she had become permanently unable to do some things. I want to say this, that a marriage like that can work. A marriage that has it can work, but you have to have done your homework to understand, what does my partner need from me? Where are they? You have to be deliberate to learn. You have to be deliberate to understand. You have to be deliberate to be patient, and you have to be deliberate to implement what you have learned. Because if you don't gain some form of knowledge or experience, you might wear each other out. I go back to my statement again. Where there's a permanent disability, that marriage can thrive and thrive very well. But you must have done your homework. Don't be ignorant and just say, okay, it's going to work. No, no, no. I've seen couples where this has taken its toll, and I've seen couples who have done their homework well, and it's been able to work well. Number 8, my last point, when there's a big social and education gap in the marriage, where there's a big social and education gap. This is what I normally say, dear listener. This is overlooked by very many couples, because we assume love conquers all. But the reality is, when you marry upwards socially, or you marry downward socially, there's a lot of homework to do to understand how to deal, to reason, to relate with your partner, because their social environment made them to be who they are. Their outlook in life made them to be who they are. So you can't marry upwards and assume that your partner sees life like you. You can't marry downwards and assume your partner sees life like you. No, you must know that the way they reason, the way they relate, they approach life is based on our social environment. So I must know where to meet you. Yes, I love you, but socially we are different, and I have to find a way to meet you. I must do my homework to know. I am married upwards. When I go to meet my in-laws, how do I talk? Nakuja aje. I must understand that they might maybe suspect me because I came from a lesser background. 2, I've talked about education also, where you find that someone has a master's, the partner reached class 4. Now here there's a problem. Yes, you are in love, but how do you relate with your partner? And this one I'll add to this in 2021, dear listener. When we are busy pursuing more in our education, don't leave your partner behind. Don't pursue further education and leave your partner behind. Unless, of course, anataka kuachwa nyuma. But in general, if you can avoid it, grow together. Because you find that when you grow together, your world changes. When your world changes, your outlook changes. You come home, you realize you have nothing to talk to your partner about. Because your outlook to life is different. You're talking about the US election, ya anataka kuongea the way mtu wa duka walikuwa wanapigana juu ya baisikeli. That's going to be a long evening. Dear listener, it is important for us to understand that social gap is very critical. When you marry upwards, you must do your homework. If you're marrying downwards, you must do your homework. Both of you must do your homework. Because when you fight, mutaanza kusema, unanidharau juu sijasoma. Unanidharau juu sijasoma. Unanidharau juu kwetu sisi ni maskini. Unaona? So those such things begin to come out. Yet you're just fighting because someone came home late. It has nothing to do with education, but it plays a part. Dear listener, we have to do our homework in these 8 types of marriage.